Hello there once again, friends and enemies, and welcome back to Weird Deck Techs. My name is Toxy, and today we're looking at one of the bigger archetypes that we've seen on this entire series, Karakuri. The Karakuri archetype has artwork that kind of resembles old Japanese puppets, but more mechanized and modern versions of them. The names of Karakuri monsters are Japanese language puns, and the archetype revolves around the gimmick of changing battle positions when the monsters enter battle. Overall, there's not much to say about Karakuri cards, so let's go ahead, take a look at the deck, how it works, and see if we like it. Here we have my Karakuri deck list, possibly, honestly, the worst deck list I've probably put together in this series. If you haven't been here before, here's how it works. I try to make a deck as pure as possible out of an archetype and as close to 40 cards as possible without going over. Then I go over every individual card in the deck, I show you how it could possibly play out for you, and then we talk about my thoughts on the deck. So let's get started. Here we have my main deck, Karakuris, and we are starting strong with 2 copies of Karakuri Ninja MDL 7749 Nanashik. This card must attack if able. When this face-up card is selected as an attack target, change its battle position. Now, before I go on with the effect, most Karakuri cards are going to have an effect that is either that exact effect or similar to that, so I'm not going to say any of those effects anymore. When this card is normal summoned, you can draw a number of cards equal to the number of face-up defense position Karakuri monsters you control. Moving on, 3 copies of 9763 Kunamzen. If this card is in your hand, you can target 1 Karakuri monster you control, change its battle position, and if you do, special summon this card as a tuner. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn except Earth Machine monsters. You can only use this effect of Kunamzen once per turn. So obviously this is setting up that we can make Karakuri some kind of Earth Machine deck, but, you know. 1 copy of 818 Hypa. If this card attacks, it is changed to defense position at the end of the battle phase. I put this card at 1, namely because it doesn't seem like it could be too important, but it could work with some of the spell cards that we see later on in the deck. 1 copy of 919 Kuik. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, select 1 level 4 or lower Karakuri monster in your graveyard and special summon it in face-up defense position. 3 copies of 236 Nisamu. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower Karakuri monster from your deck in face-up attack position. 2 copies of 313 Saizan. When you take battle damage from a battle involving this card, all face-up Karakuri monsters you control gain 800 attack and defense until the end phase. When this card is in face-up attack position, it cannot be destroyed by battle. So this is a card that we obviously want to try and keep in attack position as much as possible if we can. 2 copies of 339 Sazank. When this card is flipped face up, select 1 face-up monster on the field and send it to the graveyard. During the turn this card is flipped face up, it can attack your opponent directly. 1 copy of 249 Nishipachi. When this card is normal or special summoned, to select 1 monster on the field and change its battle position. This is one of the cards that I think you could probably have a little bit more of in the deck, depending on the way that you want to play the deck, but we will see later on if this card would be a good fit to have more of in this deck. 2 copies of 224 Ninishi. While this card is face up on the field once per turn during your main phase, you can normal summon 1 Karakuri monster in addition to your normal summoner set. You can only gain this effect once per turn. Next up, we've got 2 copies of 177 Inashichi. When this card is normal summoned, add 1 Karakuri card from your deck to your hand. 2 copies of 96 Chinkuro. Once per turn, this card cannot be destroyed by battle. Just a card to keep cards on your field. And lastly, for monsters, 2 copies of 4624 Shirokunishi. Quick effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 Karakuri monster you control, change its battle position. You can only use this effect of Shirokunishi once per turn. Those are our main deck monsters. Moving on into Spell and Traps, we start off strong with 2 copies of Karakuri Anatomy, a continuous spell. Each time a Karakuri monster's battle position is changed, place 1 Karakuri counter on this card, maximum 2. You can send this card from the field to the graveyard to draw 1 card for each counter on this card. So it's a Resident Pot of Greed. 2 copies of Gamma Oil in Equip Spell. Activate this card by targeting one Karakuri monster in your graveyard, special summon it, and equip it with this card. Once per turn, if the battle position of a face-up Karakuri monster you control is changed, the equipped monster gains 500 attack and defense, even if this card is no longer equipped. You can only activate one Gamma Oil per turn. 3 copies of Showdown Castle, a field spell. When a face-up Karakuri monster you control selects an opponent's face-up monster as an attack target, you can change the target's battle position. When this face-up card on the field is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can select one level 4 or higher Karakuri monster in your graveyard and special summon it. 1 copy of Cash. Select one face-up Karakuri monster you control, add one level 4 or lower Karakuri monster from your deck to your hand, and change the battle position of the selected monster. 1 copy of Golden Gearbox, a quick play spell. Select one face-up Karakuri monster on the field. It gains 500 attack and 1500 defense until the end phase. And last for spells, 2 copies of Gold Dust, a quick play spell. Activate only during the battle phase. Select 2 face-up Karakuri monsters in attack position. Change one of the selected monsters to defense position, and the other gains attack equal to the attack of the monster changed to defense position until the end turn. And ending off the main deck, we have our traps, starting with 2 copies of Cash Shed, a counter trap. Activate only if you control a Karakuri monster in face-up defense position. Negate the activation of an opponent's spell or trap card and destroy it. 2 copies of Cash In. Target one Karakuri monster you control and one effect monster your opponent controls. Change the battle position of your monster, and if you do, negate the effects of the opponent's monster until the end of this turn. If you control a Karakuri monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one face-up monster on the field, change that monster's battle position. You can only activate 1 Cash In per turn. And last for the main deck, 2 copies of Clock. Activate only when a face-up defense position Karakuri monster is selected as an attack target. Destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. Moving on from there, we move on to our extra deck monsters, starting with 3 copies of 00N Berebu, a synchro monster that requires 1 tuner and 1 or more non-tuner machine monsters in order to be summoned. If this card is synchro summoned, you can special summon 1 Karakuri monster from your deck. Monsters you control in defense position cannot be destroyed by battle. Once per turn, if the battle position of a face-up Karakuri monster you control is changed, you can target 1 card your opponent controls and banish it. Now, I think of Berebu as the boss monster of Karakuri cards. I think that this card does a good job of holding the rest of the deck up as a way of making sure that your monsters don't get destroyed as easily, and also making sure that you can get some removal off of your opponent. It's also banishing and not destruction, the best kind of removal. Next up, 2 copies of 00X Beredu, a synchro monster requiring 1 tuner and 1 or more non-tuner machine-type monsters in order to be summoned. When this card is synchro summoned, you can special summon 1 Karakuri monster from your deck. Once per turn, when the battle position of a face-up Karakuri monster you control is changed, you can draw 1 card. And lastly, we've got 00 Beret, which requires 1 tuner and 1 or more non-tuner machine-type monsters to be summoned. When this card is synchro summoned, you can special summon 1 Karakuri monster from your deck. Once per turn, you can target 1 monster on the field and change its battle position. So there we have the Karakuri deck. Let's go ahead and take a look at some gameplay, then we'll come right back and see how we feel about the deck. So here we have our first hand for Karakuri, and this hand's actually not that bad. We can go ahead and start by setting our clock if we'd like to. Then I think the best course of action would be to start by normal summoning our Nanishi here to give us a free normal summon and a free extra normal summon for this turn. Alright, now while Nanishi's on the field, because these 2 are level 5s, the only way to actually utilize Nanishi's effect would be to, of course, sacrifice our Kunamzan after we've special summoned it to bring out our Nanashik and draw a card. However, what we're just going to do is change the battle position of our Nanishi so that we can go ahead and special summon our Kunamzan here onto the field. If we'd like to, we can go ahead and synchro summon our Beredu using our Kunamzan and our Nanishi. That would allow us to not only special summon a Karakuri monster from our graveyard, but also when our Karakuri monsters are changed in their positions, we can draw cards. I think for now, our best bet would be to special summon in defense mode our Saizon from our deck. That way, if we're able to keep Saizon on the field when our opponent attacks Saizon, Saizon will move to attack mode. That way, not only will he not be destroyed, but all of our Karakuri monsters will get a boost in their attack. Alternatively, we can also activate our Gamma Oil to bring back our Nanishi, who we can bring back in defense mode, and then we can sacrifice Saizon for Nanashik if we really want to, and get a card draw out of it. We let our opponent go through their turn, and if they try to attack Nanishi or Saizon, of course we can let Saizon's whole deal go through, but if we want to, we can also activate Clock and get rid of all of their attack position monsters if we've still got a defense mode Karakuri on the field. During our next turn, we draw, and we draw into the field spell. Overall, I think this was a pretty good hand and a pretty good example of how this deck plays. So taking a look at Karakuri, I think that it is a pretty good archetype. I think the only thing I think this archetype could really benefit from is having maybe a little bit more special summon, just a tiny bit more, and maybe at least one Omni Negate or a couple more cards that maybe boost attack and defense, maybe something like that. Giving it more resident cards that could change battle position would also probably be a little bit of a deal. Generally speaking, people can play this deck with a couple of different archetypes. I know that Machina is possible, and I know that some people might play this with ninjas. Of course, this deck works with cards like Goes and Match and Rivalry of Warlords. My one problem with building this deck is just that this archetype has so many cards in it that it's kind of a build how you want to type of deck, and this was just how I thought would be most effective for the way that I play. Overall, my maximum knowledge from this deck comes from the solo mode on Master Duel, which I'm still not super, well versed in how this deck works. Have you played Karakuri before? If you have, let me know how I did, and let me know how you like to play the deck. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video or found something about it to enjoy, and until next time, drink your water.